which is that. Okay. Perfect. Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody has a microphone. Yeah. No, thank you. I have another one. I have a mouthpiece. So. Okay. So, shall we go?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, the first image was a documentary image of the late dictator Ceaușescu, who was inaugurating the workers of Casa Poporului, the House of the People, that you see here in the background, and which is better known maybe internationally as the Palace of Ceaușescu, and which actually has another official name today, which is the Palace of the Parliament. So the Romanian Parliament sits in that building right now. And it is a building, and it is a setup, and it is a part of Romanian history, which is a sort of a recurrent theme in subREAL's work. It came back on and off in the last 20 years. And the first work we ever did in 1990 in the summer, it was this intervention is in a public space in front of the house of the Palace of Ceaușescu, and it was conceived and executed by Dan and myself, and it referred to it was sort of a obituary. It was a sort of a memorial for the people who died in the process of constructing this megalomaniac building, which is considered the largest piece of architecture, of civil architecture worldwide. And for us it was a multi-layered situation. We were just after the political changes from a dictatorial regime to something which didn't have yet shape, and we were quite interested in trying to see what would be the new function of the public space in Bucharest under the new circumstances. Would that be a place which allows free statements and which allows artists to express themselves or not? And another thing was, of course, a spontaneous, at that time we didn't know it very clearly, but it was the first in a line of works which were coming very often one after the other in the first 3 to 4 years of subREAL's existence, and which were mainly focusing on the recent past and on the way that on the ways by which that past was transforming the society in Romania, and that's good. And the way that the Romania of the 90s was shaped by this recent past. So, yeah.
Can I ask you a question just before we go on? This avenue, did it existed before before Casa Poporului, or was it constructed with Casa Poporului?
It was the whole area was the old center of Bucharest, like we have the old center of any city, with a lot of architecture from late 18th century, 19th century, modernist architecture from the 20th. And it has a sort of a maze structure, a bit like a Balkan city. And what happened, that whole area was completely erased, including a lot of monuments of first, second, third, fourth degree. But also it was in itself a very interesting piece of historical urbanism. So it was completely erased, and then a new east-west axis was developed, and we're looking at it right now. And around the Casa Poporului there was sort of a maze of big institutional buildings that was... So basically the city was reinvented at that level.
And the axis is totally against the old network of the whole structure of the city. So if you skip and if somebody will come and will walk beside those blocks, you'll see that they are brutally cutting the whole structure of the city.
I just wanted to say something about the piece. It was an illegal installation. Actually, we didn't have any permission to do that.
Yeah.
We just went there one day. I think it was a Saturday or Sunday. But and there's not so many people saw that.
What does it say?
Yeah. Sorry?
But what does it say on the?
So on each plate, it's a name, and then it says "Rest in Peace," and
a name and an occupation.
An occupation
connected to
a construction site. So what happened is that it was early morning. There was not so many people, no traffic, almost no traffic. But the important thing is that we did that after the University Square was occupied for 3 months.
Yeah, the city and the University Square was just
the
terminated.
center, which is not far from that, I think maybe 2 kilometers on another square, it was occupied for 3 months by a movement, the opposition movement. So we did that after the police, stopped that, and then the miners came from Jew Valley, a kind of and they were asked to come to clean the space. So we were lucky because everything was finished, and actually probably police didn't have any. They didn't know what we were doing, so that nobody asked us. It was very strange.
Well, there was a police car.
Yeah, but nobody will stop us, or nobody will ask us what we are doing. And
but it was a grey zone then. There was no necessity to ask for anything because nobody knew how it goes.
Sure.
I think that today it would be much more difficult to do this.
You could not do that today. Yeah. It's very
unless
clear.
You have
it's very clear. It was not possible. Even if you remember, I was thinking maybe we should redo this piece during the exhibition at the museum, because the Museum of Contemporary Art is just on this building. It's 4% of the building. It's occupied by the Museum of Contemporary Art, where the first retrospective was. So we were thinking about maybe do that again, but we didn't agree about. But anyhow, it was probably not possible to do that. Yeah.
Is it rest in peace because, I don't want to go too much on this tangent, but is it rest in peace because of the kind of the mass, everyday occurring deaths in the construction?
There's a certain... It's something that I personally witnessed. Those kind of little monuments put by colleagues for people who are dying there. So there is, of course, no real evidence, no statistics. But it's pretty obvious that the construction was going at an incredible pace. So it's a huge building which was finished in 7-8 years. The rhythm of working was terrible, and by coincidence, I happen to know at least one person whose father died in the construction site. So.
But this small requiem plate, it's not only about the people who died there, because they were not dying like flies. There were few people, maybe, or I don't know how many. But it's also about all the people who were involved in this huge, building. Not only workers, not only architects, but also artists. All this decoration, all these fountains, they were done by artists, the mosaics and everything. So it's more or less like a symbolic. It's not necessarily one-to-one. It's not necessary to people who really died there, but it's just about it's about the Romanian people, maybe.
This is a mourning piece. So let's go to something funnier, to food. This is the second installation we made in the beginning of '91, and it's called Alimentara. It was an installation / event. And Alimentara, aliment means food in Romanian, and Alimentara is the place where you're fetching the food, and it was the only type of shop where you could buy foodstuffs. So it was like an immense national network of Alimentara. Problem was that there was hardly anything in the Alimentara of the time, except some smoked pork bones and a lot of jars with pickles, which were, built by the bored salesmen and women from the shops who didn't have anything to sell. They were just spending time in making bizarre constructions of those jars. And in 1990, this situation started to change very quickly. And we had the realization that Alimentara is going to vanish. We didn't know what's going to come in place of it. We had no vision about the consuming.
It's a bila.
Yeah, but I personally didn't have any culture of the consumer society. But we knew that something is disappearing, and Alimentara was disappearing, and we said that we should make another monument to it, because it was something which was completely embedded in our existence in the past, because food scarcity was such a central element during the dictatorship in Romania, especially mid-80s to late 80s. So what we did, because those were still hard times for us, we didn't have a lot of money, so we said, okay, let's invite a few friends, everybody brings something, like for a party. and we tried to recompose a sort of an alimentar situation. So it's a collective installation. We were 4 or 5 artists involved there, and everybody brought some like eggs and the smoked bones and some very cheap wine and some how you call it, lard or ham, and we cooked the ham there and we boiled the wine. It was pretty terrible. People understood that it's sort of a participatory thing, so they went through the ordeal of eating and drinking those horrendous things we were offering them. And yeah, that was the...
And also the exhibition installation has this kind of minimal aesthetic which was specific to this kind of shops. Have you entered?
Yeah, sure.
Almost anything was very minimal.
It was just one day event, so it's just...
Yeah? Okay. I don't. Yes. This is Je t'aime moi non plus. Probably some of you would know the song. I don't know. It used to be very popular when we were kids and teenagers. I don't know. Maybe it came back. Serge Gainsbourg and his then wife Jane Birkin. It's a very erotic song. Not only by the title, but by the way it's played. And
anyhow, it was forbidden by Vatican.
Oh, that's good.
You know.
Always on the good side. Anyway, so what we did with Je t'aime moi non plus was offering to people a sort of voting machine. And in the sense that the soundtrack of the song was looped and it was playing for 1 hour. It's a very sensual song. You can look on YouTube. You're going to have a good time. I promise you. And so people were led to come into the voting room where those cardboard penises were waiting for them, and there was a board with instructions telling them that they should manifest their political I don't know, dreams, desires, opinions absolutely freely, and then that they should use the ballot box, and then the boxes are going to be open later on, and everybody could see what everybody else said, anonymously of course. And that's what was going on, and I think that we did it twice. But the first one was done first of all in Timișoara, which was let's say the cradle of the Romanian Revolution or whatever that was. So that's where the revolt against Ceaușescu started, and it was happening either immediately after or immediately
1 week before the first Romanian elections. Everybody was very talking only about elections.
Yeah.
But in the same time was happening a big media manipulation from the TV, which was done by the power who took the political party who took the power, and they of course wanted to keep it that they had the TV and they were manipulated. And what we wanted to do is to experience a sort of manipulation in a different way, through this music and through this erotic thing, to manipulate the people, which otherwise we speak only about politics, and their responses on these ballots were totally not political at all. So
it was in an art gallery.
It was a festival actually. It's a museum of.
It was a museum art.
It was a performance festival which was quite politicized. And that's an interesting question, because we were discussing in a group of students, Iosif was, I think, there also, Dan not, a few months ago, that festival had a lot of performances which were extremely emotionally charged and extremely sad and melancholic or angry, and they were focusing, of course, on the former political situation and the present one. And our work was completely different in the sense that it was, I would dare say, funny, and it was also cheeky and ironical, and it was also a bit impertinent, and it was obviously something.
A blasphemy to the revolution.
And that was, I think, looking retrospectively, I think that this was something which positioned us in a very particular way in the art scene of the 90s in Romania. There we go again. Condoms now.
Called, 1,000 artists in Europe, and this was a part of an exhibition, which we were also the curators, and we invited. It was kind of open call for artists to participate. We did it because we, in the early 90s, we felt a kind of danger to that the official art, which was artists who are doing portraits of Çavuşesku, to be replaced with another official art, which was the religious art. Sometimes the same artist who did the portrait of Çavuşesku started to do all kind of science and all kind of this kind of religious. And the new political power, who are the former communists, they switched that suddenly. They were making a lot of fuss and considering with candles in churches because this was. Some months before, in the same space, was a big exhibition. It was called Philokalia, and it was this kind of art where a lot of priests were coming at the opening. And we wanted to make some different, an alternative to this exhibition. And we took the opportunity because there was a celebration of 200 years from the death of Mozart, and
maybe you can show the work actually, to people can understand better. So we bought 1,000 condoms from the pharmacy, and then we used them, as a curtain of I don't know if you can see it well. So the envelopes we use them as envelopes for names of artists, like 1,000 artists, Romanian artists at that time, and then the condoms themselves, they were blown as small balloons were flying into a kind of curtain. So the whole thing has a very immaterial aspect, but in the same time also blasphematory, because the artists were, of course, nobody knew the meaning of that, because the names, they were not published. Nobody knew what is inside of this.
Well, they knew that there are names of our colleagues, but they didn't know what names.
What it is. Anyhow, so this.
So basically, it was the personnel list of the artists' union, so the artists' syndicate. We just took the list and cut out the names, because there was also this completely obsessive thing about being a European country or a non-European country. And probably for Turkey, this is this kind of familiar situation, like EU inside or outside the EU, what the meaning of it is. And everybody was completely hysterical about going to church and about being in Europe. So then we thought that would be a very direct and efficient way of putting immediately 1,000 Romanian living artists into Europe. So that's what was one of the incentives of the piece.
Can I ask a question? I mean, how did it all come through? Did you find Europe?
Yes.
The rubbers first, or were you?
Yeah, we found the rubbers.
They came as after revolution. There came a lot of food and help from the west to the Romania. And among them were these condoms. They were in Europe. They were very cheap, and all the places.
Anyhow, we've been to the pharmacy, and I said we want 1,000 condoms.
I don't think they had it in one pharmacy.
No, and then they said, well, we don't have many. Maybe we have to count them. And then they disappeared for half an hour, and they came with, and it was quite cheap, like one
lei, which was like 20 euro cent, like nothing.
Yeah, but anyhow, it's an investigation.
Also, kind of significance of filtering to Europe. You don't get so easy in Europe. So
It's a postponed project.
So one made it. Oh, okay.
Huh?
One made it. There's one condom which is not packed, which is still
exists.
I also should have some, but I couldn't find them anymore.
Okay, this is another piece which is called Perinica, or Little Pillow. And Perinica, I'm very sorry that we didn't have the sound also for the exhibition, because it's an absolutely hilarious folk dance song. So people are sort of like circling and dancing hysterical. It's very, very jumpy. And the idea is that it's sort of like mating dance in a way. So there is a man in the middle of the circle with a handkerchief. And I don't know why it's called Little Pillow, because the handkerchief is the thing. So with the handkerchief you choose a woman from the dancing people around you, and you drag her in the middle and you kiss her. And then you give her the handkerchief, and it goes on. You got the idea. You can try it at home. And The music itself was extremely aggressive, and it was overplayed in the 80s on all radio stations. So it was like like getting diabetes from Perenica. So when we were invited to a very bizarre event in somewhere in the middle of nowhere in France, in sort of like a folk festival.
It was called Festival du Pied,
yeah,
food festival, and they invite people. Each year was a country invited. That year was Romania, and they invite people related to some kind of dance or even climbing the mountains or anything that has to do with the feet.
Okay.
And that's why this dance was in the mid. Actually, it happened into an old chapel. It was a chapel that a medieval time, and which was just a tower, like a Galata tower.
Yep.
And the idea was that people would enter. There was still an altar and everything, but it was not functioning as a liturgic space. So the people who should step on this kind of mandala rope thing.
Was a network of ropes.
Yeah. And it was very funny because they had to do that in the rhythm, involuntarily, in the rhythm of this music, because they had to.
So the music was playing constantly on the ghetto blaster there.
And anyhow, the thing is that the former Romanian king came without it was an unexpected visit. He was invited, but we didn't know as artists or the rest of the dancer, because there was a kind of security issue. And then he came, of course, and he came to the place and he entered it.
Oh, great.
Unfortunately, I was not there in that moment to photograph because I was outside. But
we have to believe you. He was the only one who was present there at the time. So, okay. Well, that's something which links us to Vasif and to Istanbul. It's part of a installation which is on the ground floor. It's called Eurasia. And we were participating in the Istanbul Biennale of 1992 that Vasif curated with this installation. And actually, I think this is an image from that setup. And it was, I think, a journal theme which was about migrations or something, or I don't remember. You should remember.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed. Productional difference in the school.
Huh?
Productional cultural difference.
Oh, okay. Well, thank God. I thought that you couldn't do something like migration.
But at the same time, there was something about Columbus here, and then there was about travel.
But anyway, there was a production of cultural difference. Sounds much better. I'm so relieved. But so what was happening at that time? It was a huge media issue because it was a media, smoke curtain, as you say, was about the illegal traffic of roller bearings between Romania and Turkey, because there were big factories producing roller bearings of high standards. During the 80s, and in the 90s, of course, everybody was dismantling the older industries and stealing whatever they could. And to our amazement, they were constantly capturing big amounts of roller bearings, which were literally carried in their bags by people to Istanbul to sell them in the bazaar. And that was like a red herring coming every day on television.
It was a kind of myth of the Romanian heavy industry, which is producing the best bearings from
the cheapest.
The world. And everybody in Istanbul.
Actually, we had two.
Eager to have that. So.
We had two options because there were two types of things that were smuggling. One was the roller bearings, and the other one was the mining equipment.
What?
The mining equipment.
You
don't remember that?
No.
But it was about the oil industry, and they were.
Yes, but mining equipment. We couldn't have come around with mining.
That's why I decided that's too big. We couldn't do that.
Even we couldn't afford.
And then the second thing was how to smuggle them, because they pretend that there's something else, and They are scooters. So actually, this is a model from my childhood. You know, people will in the 50s, late or middle of 50s, you would have to build yourself a scooter and use the roller bearings because they were the cheapest.
But it's not only that, but if you didn't, you could also buy them, but then you were replacing the rubber wheels with the roller bearings because it was much cooler.
Yeah, but it's cool to have this roller bearing because they make a very nice sound and just they are much better than the ones that you buy.
And this was a very sophisticated operation we were running because first of all we got a very important sponsorship from the roller bearings factory itself because they were costing really a fortune, so they gave it for free. And then we managed to have a very serious and deep discussion with the Ministry of Culture at the time. And the Ministry of Culture sponsored our participation in Istanbul, and they had also to export the roller bearings, and that made them completely hysterical because they were constantly having a sensation they are manipulated by us into some dirty job. And actually after the work came from Istanbul, the second day literally they invaded our space to count the roller bearings because they were claiming that they are the property of the ministry for some reason. Anyway. So I think we think actually that this is very much part of the work itself, the way the institutions were getting involved into it, the way the black market was transformed into a sort of art product, which is actually easing up the way of smuggling stuff outside, and then you don't smuggle it, but you create the impression of this, and yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true that it's literally, if you went to the Romanian bazaar in Aksaray or sometimes even in Karaköy to the port, you would literally see people selling single roller bearings, really single roller bearings for which no pedestrian could have possibly any use of, but that was really happening. And then the other thing, of course, was this piece is so much about mobility. Yeah. And during that time, for one reason or another, from the Romania, the train station, there was Alibaba tours, if you recall. Like every half hour a bus would leave Bucharest, come to Istanbul, and vice versa. So there was this, it was super active. Yeah. And of course, this same instrument was widely used in Istanbul, in Turkey as well, either the four-wheel roller bearing style or the two-wheel.
Yeah.
Actually, we had a very interesting trip to Istanbul because we came by bus with bus full with maggots, with all kinds of things. And the bearings and the installation came on the last day by plane, because they, I don't know for what reason. So
I think it was stuck in the customs. I remember. You had to work for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Shall we start?
Dracula Land.
So the next project was Dracula Land, which is inspired by the myth of Dracula. You know this story, we had a trip to Bistritz. Bistritz is a city, the capital of a district in Romania, and Bistritz is the very place where the Bram Stoker novel action started, at a kind of restaurant or like a auberge, of course. During the Çavuşesku time, Dracula was not necessarily a big issue, but for international tourists, for Americans, they were very excited about that. And in this neighborhood of this city, it was a tourist complex, or how you call it, resort, dedicated to Americans and special tourists which were interested in vampirism. And they would come in groups, and they will stay there, and they will experience all this, from drinking blood to sleeping in coffins. But this was not known for us. We just found out, or just maybe vaguely, we just found out when we visited this town, and the people there would took us. And that time the hotel was already not functioning anymore. But anyhow, this is the story how it started. So later we had an exhibition in Bistritz, in the same, very close to where the place of the story starts. But this time it was a house or the villa of Ceaușescu. He had a villa in each town, just in case that he will come. he will wait for him. It was all the time ready for him to come unexpected, with personal, with people cleaning and beds and everything. And after the Ceaușescu fall, the place became the kind of museum and gallery. So that's why we started there. Yeah, of course, you can recognize all the elements of the Dracula myth and
why should they
cliché.
Are they experts in Dracula?
No, maybe not. Maybe you tell them.
Are you?
Yeah, just tell them.
Yeah. No, but it's there were, I think, 4 rooms, right? And in one of the rooms there was this instrument which was essential to the historical figure. Dracula was an impaler. He was not a vampire, not as far as we know, at least. But he was impaling people, which was a delicatessen in those times, and it was a type of torture or execution which was not only his attribute, but he was indulging himself into it very much. And well, the attributes are obviously there. This is one of the parts of the installation you could still see in the display, and it's a visualization of this lust the Romanians have for America, and also a sort of a visualization of how the myth would start in Romania with the country of Dracula, and would end up in the United States, reshaped by the film industry in Hollywood. And the maps are made of garlic, Romania, and cornflower, United States. So this is the Romanian version of Köfte. It was sort of a köfte display, which was a sort of a time-based work. So the idea was that the köfte was raw and it was supposed to bleed, which it did, and then rot, which it did as well. So there were a lot of smells: garlic smell, rotten meat smell in the exhibition, sound environments of various kinds. Okay.
But you did not show this in Emergency or in Venice in '93.
In Venice in '93, we had the video, which you can see here a couple of stills. The video is also running upstairs, and we tried also with the stakes to make an installation, but it was removed by the fireman. So yeah, that's the. So we were either in front of the emergency exit, Ușita de Emergența, or we were in some place where the fire brigade didn't like us, so it was constantly moving around. Okay, so maybe we wrap it up a bit and go to not this one. So this is the first version of an installation you would see upstairs, which is called Erzsébet. It's part of this series of Dracula Land, but it has a totally different setup right now, and I'm mentioning it right now only because it recycles again the theme of the Ceaușescu's palace, and if you go upstairs you're going to see what we are meaning. And Castello, yeah. So this is an installation from which just the sculptural element in the background, the one in the end of the perspective, is present in this show, and it is called Castelul din Carpați, the castle from the Carpathians, and it's a sort of a punny title because the castle, the building itself, is made of packs of cigarettes which are called Carpathian cigarettes, like the mountains, which is, I think, ironical because mountains should be something healthy. But probably so were the Carpath cigarette, and we started, as we often did, from cultural, play with cultural references. And this time it was about a novel written by Jules Verne, which is called The Castle of the Carpathians, Le Château de Carpath, which is a Jules Verne-like version of the myth of Dracula, and it's an absolutely amazing book, very, very funny. Very funny the way in which the technology of the future, as seen by Jules Verne, was interplaying with the character of Dracula and his vampiric lust. And so we built the castle, which is the castle of Ceaușescu. It's a scale model of that castle. We built it literally from packs of Carpathian cigarettes.
We got a kind of sponsorship from the factory of cigarettes, and was a sort of barter business. We have to design for. There was a funny lady who was the director, and she wanted to launch two new brands of cigarettes. One was called the Unemployed, and another one Naționale, the Nationals, which was an old brand.
But you wanted it remade, yeah.
Yeah, and then we designed this for Naționale because we have the main myth in Romania. It's about Miorița.
Founding myth.
Founding myth. It's about the shepherds and the shepherds.
Founding myth is about them sheep, basically.
Yeah,
Speaking,
yeah, we took
sheep.
this design from camel, but we replaced.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious. Basically.
This was the chômeur unemployed. So this was in exchange for the package of cigarettes we got for the cost.
It fell shortly. I mean, the factory was bought by Philip Morris or something, and the woman was sacked immediately, and all those crazy projects didn't happen. Other things we don't have really time to go through. Maybe the speed thing. Okay. Well, this is another scale model of Çavuşescu's palace, which is transformed into this kind of object you have in Orthodox churches. It was always amazing for me how the semiotic goes. So you lit candles for the dead, and you lit separately candles for the living, so that God doesn't get confused. Who are you lighting candles from? And I was always like totally fascinated by this thing. And then we played it in a different way. So we said mulțumiți, nemulțumiți instead of living and dead. Mulțumiți, nemulțumiți means content and discontent. So we made a construction for content people, which is a church, and which is
also the church is the institution in Romania who gets the biggest credibility among the population. The parliament is the institution who is the less credible. So this building is the parliament now, and it's nemulțumiți because the people are there.
It's for the discontent,
about the church, and also in the neighborhood of this big Casa Poporului will be this building, which is a big debate now in Romania. Now making the biggest cathedral in Romania will be higher than the Casa Poporului, not that spread so big, but anyway, it will be huge. So they are constructing it. It's a big debate, and I will pass to another last part of our activity, which is based on an archive for photographs. The project started in 1995, and it belongs to a magazine which all of us,
we worked there.
Staff.
Can I ask you about the Arta magazine? It was critical. We still have a couple issues of it. It's just you were also involved with it.
Yeah.
As writer and editor.
Well, I started as an external writer, and I moved in the editorial staff in 87. And in 91 I became chief editor, and in 93 it went bust because those were the times. And Iosif was hired as a photographer, and Dan worked as a collaborator on the layout. But that happened from 1990 on for a couple of years. So that's the story, the personal story.
And also the interesting part about this may be that Romanian TV revolution has lots of aspects about like disappearance of archives and all that stuff is that we all know well. But somehow the Arta archive has both disappeared and also reappeared.
Yeah.
That is, it was. I mean, whose ownership was it in these photographs and all of those things? You just kind of said, "We're taking it," or how did it happen that it?
Well, I can tell you how it happened, because first of all, it was started. Well, first of all, let's see what an archive is. An archive is something which has a system. Yeah. Okay. So this thing started as an archive of an editorial. No, it started as an archive of Arta magazine in 1953 when the magazine started, and it was really every piece of paper which was going through the process of publication was archived there in envelopes with labels, etc. And this process went on for some years, and then I suspect that they started to lack funding for personnel, so they gave up the people who looked after the archive. But then they never gave up the idea of collecting and preserving everything they worked with. So it became sort of a chaotic deposit. And when I came to work there, it was already like that. Now, in 50 years of existence, the magazine was constantly moved around by the Artists' Union because they constantly had the impression that the offices are much better or much better used for artists as studios. So these hundreds of kilograms of photographs are put in bags and moved around and then thrown in a cupboard and then moved around and whatever. And the story ended in '93 when the Artists' Union took all financial support they gave us till then, and even more so, they evicted us from the last place they gave us for functioning. And on that occasion, when they came to take their furniture and typewriters, we realized that they had no interest for the archive and they didn't have any papers for it. So we asked, what do we do with the photographs? And they said, whatever you want, throw them away, we don't care, we don't have papers for that. And then we spoke with Mihai Roveanu, the director of the Museum of Contemporary Art, and he gave us a big truck and we put them in our studio in Bucharest. So that's how it works. And now it's back in, it's back. Now after we worked with it a few years, we gave it to the Museum of Contemporary Art, which is building currently a big archive, proper. So that's the story.
So this was in Kısa House Battalion, and so we applied with this archive, promising that we'll make every month an event. And, yeah, we did. Everything was started from, so this archive, all these photographs are somehow connected to art events. They are art reproductions, most of them portraits of artists, images from openings, and yeah, we kept it for 1 month, and yeah, then it falls down. So we made kind of open studios for this, and after 1 month we did different event. We took. There is a smaller version which we presented in Manifesta in 1996. This is another installation because when we were looking to these photographs from the archive, we constantly were finding images from these artists, which was one of the most official Romanian artists, was kind of interface between the Union of Artists and the political power. He was leader of the Union of Artists for 25 years. And he was the type of artist who was changing the styles according to the needs of the political power, being the socialist realist in the 50s, kind of post-Brancusi, post-Henry Moore in the 60s, and then in the 70s where the nationalist politics started to do historical figures and so on. And and then in the back there is also a picture with him as a political figure, as an administrator, shaking hands and giving prizes to artists. And what was interesting there was that you could see that many artists who were pretending that they were dissidents or they, after the revolution, they at a certain moment they got shake the hand of this guy. So the things were more nuanced in Romanian art at the communist time than some artists wanted to present it.
So maybe I think it's important for understanding our notion about the archive that the material there was basically referring to art, to the history of visual arts per se. So through various mechanisms of exchange and documentation, it wasn't basically only about Romanian contemporary art, it was about Renaissance, Italian Renaissance, it was about the art of the Incas, it was about everything really, applied arts, visual arts, sculpture, public space things. So it wasn't just focusing on Romania, so it was art in general.
Yeah, so after, but we'll not present all the projects we did from this archive, but anyway, at the end of our stays in Berlin, we started to look also into the negatives from which we found very interesting and weird situation. Looking, because in the magazine usually was cropped only the centerpiece, which was an art object and on a background, but the things were more complex in the things we found in these negatives are more complex because you could see also sometimes the artist or the environment where the object was done. And we decided to print some hundreds of these pictures. You could see part of them in the exhibition.
So it was a technical trick because it was before the Photoshop times, and they were using a short exposure time, right? And the people in the background were waving a cloth in order to isolate, to create a sort of a cloud, because the cloth was perceived by the camera as a sort of a fuzzy thing. So whatever was in front of the cloth was becoming extremely evident. So for us this was semi-tized like serving art. So it's basically about being the servant of art, and that's what we were actually in the beginning of our work with Art Time magazine. We were the servants of the art and of the artist by writing, by photographing their work. And serving art can also have the meaning of like eating art, servir de l'art. It's like a plate, like eating something. So it's about this kind of cannibalization of art production in order to make something else out of it, make a living, to create a power system or whatever. And on the other hand, it's about the fact that the centerpiece is not art. We believe it's what happens around it and life and people. And those art servants are, I think, for us much more interesting and much more appealing figures and subjects to work with than the art piece in the middle, no matter what the value of that art piece would be. It's just the principle of it which is not interesting for us.
Yeah, and we did some other projects starting from this. We started to isolate, take out the art object and emphasize when it big blow up. We are also in the show some of these works. Different versions. And this was also presenting only the margins of the negative, or this kind of the people who were waving the background. They were like some ghosts. And we also in 1990 we were invited to participate in Venice Biennial, and after this, with this occasion, I got into kind of copyright trouble because suddenly some people said, but you don't have the right to. Some other people, other photographers did this, and then although the photographers, we didn't claim that we are the authors of the photos, because they were somehow found images, and they were made by many photographers, but still was a very interesting in a way from retrospectively seeing, because we met lawyers and saying, what's the problem, and in the end the main problem was the right to the image, because some of the people would claim they don't like the context of their opinion. They were sometimes the photographer or the wife of photographer, and then and then 1 year later we were invited in Paris, where some of these photographers were working to do something with the archive. I said, we don't want to make any more with these prints, but we like to do a painted version. Right? It's because the painting, compared with photography, doesn't have this indexical value, and something is not a document. Nobody can claim that. And we also, this was one of so we gave the other thing we want to show is that who has the money can be the artist, because none of us don't know to paint, and we got some production money from the diploma. There was this exhibition, and then we paid made a contract with him, a young, very talented painter in Romania. We gave him some hundreds of photographs, and he made this painted version, which also came of that installation.
And I think with this, thank you. And I think with this, the archive basically disappeared completely. So we destroyed it in a symbolic way. But first of all, by cropping the pictures and enlarging only the parts which were interesting for us. We were completely, you know, leaving aside the art objects, and in the end, you know, denying the quality of the photograph, of the power of the photography, by just returning it into painting. And from there on, we felt free to go to something in a way different, but also similar, and that was working with the cities and with the urban culture. That was something very inspiring for us from the very beginning anyway. And having a privileged period when we could travel a lot, we thought that we should make a better use of it and try to document our travels and our contacts with the art world in various cities through photography. And because our way of thinking is sort of systemic, we said, well, probably we need to invent something, to have a system, which is in a way something that people could perceive today as being boring, because today having a system when you produce work is not very good. But so were we at that time, and we said, well, the system is lying in the archive system, in the way the photographer was challenged to fit an object of this proportion in a 6 by 6 centimeter negative. So why don't take this further, and why not fall back on our condition of art servants, and why not take our favorite subject, which are the humans, as the subject of photography, instead of having in the middle of photography the art piece. So there we started to make this project, which we called Interviewing the Cities. And the first layer of this project is those photographs where we are reenacting the proceedings of serving art, like those people endlessly waving a background. But this time in front of the cloth are our friends, people we just met during our travels, people we worked with sometimes. And all those photographs are the product of a carefully designed process, where we were explaining to them where we come from artistically, what was our parcours, our process, how did we come to this idea, and why are we talking to those people. And then also we were of course interested in having this reciprocate and learn more about their activity and about the curriculum. So at the end, the atmosphere was relaxed enough in order to realize this kind of group portrait, which was also a collective product, I think, in many cases, in the best cases, anyhow. And we had absolutely tremendous encounters and memorable things. And one of the things I personally am proud of is that we managed to take a photo of Harald Seemann a few months before he died. We went specially for that in Ticino and he was kind enough to receive us. We didn't know about his situation. It was very interesting and moving half a day. He showed us his archives. He was very gregarious and very friendly. And the second layer is framing, and this is a very interesting performative exercise, because what you see here is a classical trompe-l'œil situation. So what you have is an empty frame, and you have around it a cloth, and it's very Renaissance-like. So why do you have the cloth? In order to deceive the eye, because now we are hiding the fact that, don't move it right. Thank you. We are hiding, no, don't move it. Nu mișca. Aș mișca de
find one more.
You can do it.
No, because I tried to find one more clear.
Deci poți să spun?
Yes.
Okay. So, thank you. Okay. So what you do, you're deceiving the eye, the way the eye is running around the image. You're cutting the fact. You're hiding the fact that what's happening here is connected to what's happening here. That's sort of the role of the cloth. And what's happening here, it becomes a concentrated thing. It becomes an autonomous image. And then people are going to say, well, it's a painting, or it's a mirror, it's a photograph that you frame, because the magic of the frame and the trompe-l'œil that we construct with the cloth and everything, and the careful way in which you have to parallel the plan of the film and the plan of the frame, is part of the whole trick, the way you adjust the light. It's a very complicated way of doing it. It takes a lot of time and a lot of physical effort, and people who are passing by are having a lot of fun. Sometimes when you think you're going to take you have an assistant who takes a picture, and then inevitably some idiot comes and pops in the frame and they waves and participates in it. So There is also a very interesting, you know, social part in it that we like. Okay.
So the last. So this is also the last layer from this project intervened the cities, so listening to structure, and was focusing on public monuments from the same cities where there were the frames and portraits. And for us, looking at everybody can make this exercise to look some of the public monuments, especially this figurative ones. It seems that they are like silent witnesses of the specific city, and they have something to say, but nobody listened to them, and we gave them this chance to say something.
Okay.
Yeah, then...
that's it, folks.
Yeah, that's it. The only thing is that we did last year kind of presentation of the whole project with this archive, because the project is, we had encountered this problem when we presented only part of it to understand, because the whole is more interesting than each part, so the process is more interesting than each part of the project. So we made a kind of
flowchart.
Yeah, flowchart on which we presented in Graz in Camera, Austria, with specialists in photography.
So there is a system.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. There's a system, but there's also some shift along the way. And I remember this because the time you showing the archives, kind of Sandra Marrow thing going on. There's also Romanian artists plugged into this whole set of photography. So there's also that kind of funny agenda. And that was also the time when the Manifesta was in its kind of early hot days, and there was a lot of archive projects or documentation projects from the former East Europe, being kind of incessantly plugged into the kind of the general circulation of things. The early days of the Soros, or the heyday of the Soros Art Centers, with this kind of the whole promotional thing going on in Manifesta, in Sao Paulo in '94, and all of those things. And then but the whole thing shifts from that to another level with this kind of, with what you call this kind of serving the art situation. But early on, it almost goes parallel to this kind of making something visible as well as doing something else. Okay, questions?
Are you guys still actively doing projects together, or?
Well, the mulțumit thing, the contented discontenting, it's something we concocted for a few years now. It has several versions, but the latest version with the cathedral and stuff, this is something we made last year. And well, on and off we do projects together. This interviewing the cities thing is extremely, as I said, it's extremely draining physically, and logistically it's complicated, and I don't think we are up to doing it again. We are contemplating the idea of increasing the number of portraits we do in Romania. I think it's sort of a duty to have more witness photographs and portraits of our colleagues from Romania, and maybe that's something that we are going to do. And together with Dan, we did a performance in 2005 or something, which was a remake of another performance where we're sharing blood with each other, so it was like being brothers in blood. We didn't go through this here, and it's also not in the exhibition. So yeah, that's a bit how it is right now.
But most of the projects we did during the starting from this archive thing was based on residencies, because Călin was living in Amsterdam, I was living in Bucharest, and we needed a place in between. And on the other side, in the last years, we focused more and more on personal projects. So each of us, we have also an individual personal careers of artists. So this is only the group, which is individual things are totally different. Each of us are doing totally different things from what we are doing together. So, yeah.
Now we are working on a book. Where it's a sort of a book about subREAL, but we are very much involved in its production. So it's a retrospective of what we did with the catalog, etc. So that's also something which brings us together. So it's, well, a bit of work, a bit of administration. Yeah.
It was not very clear till now. I just left the group in a certain moment in 2000, because we didn't discuss that. Just people know that.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's why some of the works are not done in trio. And more like a duo, like Călin and Nicolae. But the early works, they were realized together, and the part which is related more to kind of action or kind of involving other people or setting up kind of thematics that could be followed by others. But also we started kind of site-specific installations, and it was a certain shift when I left the group, so that they moved to Art magazine and to other stories. But early works, there's still I consider three different periods of subREAL. It's the first, the foundation, and then there's the trio period, and then again the duo with Călin and Nicolae. Yeah, that was something I want to bring up.
Other questions? Everything was said. Good.
Just before we close, I'd like to thank the Romanian Cultural Institute of Istanbul. This last year, they granted our colleague Duygu a travel grant with which she was able to visit Bucharest in particular and saw the subREAL exhibition retrospective at MNAC, and this is how this project came to fruition. Thanks.
We want to thank Duygu and Raluca, who actually made this exhibition. Raluca was the curator at the Bucharest for the retrospective, and Duygu was very enthusiastic, and they work very good. And yeah, thanks to them, this show is here.